Russell Wilson trade is just an utter disaster. It's one they would give anything to have a redo. But you don't get redos in the NFL. This is their quarterback, the contract, they owe him the money, and they're stuck with it. They're not going to be able to unload him. Sorry, Bronco fans. He's going to be your quarterback for the foreseeable future. And tonight was pretty embarrassing. He did not throw for over 100 yards. Now, I understand, road game, short week, Chiefs defense really good. I'm paying a guy, if I'm the Denver Broncos, if I'm the Walton family, if I'm Sean Payton, I can't get over 100 yards from my quarterback. 2 interceptions. One was tipped, but the other one was pretty terrible. Let's face it. I've heard this all year long. Russell's playing a lot better. Well, it's like, hey, how was that sandwich? 1 to 10. And a guy goes like 9. You're like, that's an incredible sandwich. But if the guy goes, it's like a 2. It's like, that's terrible. So if the next sandwich you eat is a 4, it doesn't mean that 4 sandwich is that good. It just means it's better than the 2. So yeah, is he playing okay this year? Sure, relative to last year. But the guy they traded several players for, ton of first-round picks, and paid all this money, they're expecting to be a star. And those days are over. So we just need to come to grips with who Russell Wilson is. He's an average player who can have okay days, above average days, but he also has a lot of below average days. And the guy that they thought they once were getting, right, was, even if he wasn't quote-unquote star, a top 3 quarterback, could be a top 8 quarterback, and he's not sniffing that anymore. And then we know all the other issues in the organization. Sean Payton's trading guys left and right. I would expect the general manager not to be there for long. But what do they do? Honestly, what do they do? Because I threw this out. I think I've said this on the podcast. I've definitely tweeted it, that Sean Payton has some Gruden vibes when he came back to the Raiders. Now, it doesn't parallel each other, right? Sean Payton took 1 year off. Gruden took a decade. It's not like Sean Payton was out of the league that long. But when he took time off, he was clearly run down, and he jumped at $90 million. And a lot of people have talked about this, including Coward. And I've talked about he was going to be a package deal with Vic Fangio. Well, if you're going to be a package deal with Vic Fangio, which is the right move, you can't go to the Denver Broncos where he's not going to come with you. And then you go to a place where you're with a quarterback that, let's face it, their personalities have never made much sense with each other. And especially if the guy's not going to be a good player, it's going to be a miserable experience. I was texting with a buddy in the league a couple days ago, and we were talking about the miserable office ratings. And anyone that's worked in the NFL, anyone that's worked in football, high school included, Division I college football or the NFL, when you start losing, the building is not fun. I've only worked in one other kind of corporate setting, and that was radio. And on the worst day, it never sniffed being close to as down, as negative, and as miserable in a football office after a loss, after a losing streak, during a losing streak. It's hard to really verbalize it, and I'm a podcaster. It's all you do. You spend, 70, 80, 90 hours in the office, and when you're losing, no one smiles. It's not fun. And I picked Belichick, and I got pushback. Belichick's always surly. He was angry when they were winning championships. Sean Payton is a guy that runs hot. That building, to me, could just be an all-time miserable area for players, for coaches. And what's their fix? Honestly, what's their fix? Because the Gruden comparison, he attempted to trade a player and get a bunch back, and it essentially tanked their season in Khalil Mack. Their problem was they missed on all the picks, but they made a big picture move, and it just backfired. Sean Payton can't do that. He's got no players to trade. I guess he could trade Patrick Surtain, but what's the point of doing that? Like, I would just keep that guy, right? So I just really think that they are in a tough spot. That's really the only guy that has any value on their team in terms of netting them first-round picks back. But their situation is an utter disaster. The quarterback feels like for every good game he has, then he comes right back and has a bad game. And their coach doesn't feel like he has any answers. And what's the ultimate result? They're going to end up firing a defensive coordinator. So he's going to be in the offseason looking for a defensive coordinator. They're spending a ton of money on a lot of different people, right? I mean, they just broke the bank this offseason on McGlinchey. Russell Wilson's contract's about to kick in. So it's not like they're just flush with salary cap space. Never in a million years. Like, even if I thought they weren't going to live up to the offseason hype, I would have guessed 8-9, a competitive 7-10. I mean, they look like a 3 or 4 win team. They look like a team who is squarely in the mix to get Caleb Williams. Think about that. I mean, the other team is technically the Bears, but it's because of Carolina, has a rookie quarterback who's 5'9", 180 pounds. This team has a $45 million quarterback named Russell Wilson, which at one time, and now it's becoming debatable, is he even a Hall of Famer? I always thought he was, but you start having games like this, seasons like this, sometimes you're remembered the way it finished, not the way it started. And I think the way it's going, I don't know. I don't feel as strongly. So